Some of you weren't here last week, and so we'll take off the, the Thursday, 2 weeks from now will be the what, 26th? The 26th, and then right after New Year's Day. New Year's Day is on Wednesday, isn't it? Christmas, New Year, I think it is. So we'll do that and then get back, and I'll probably send you some text. We are in 1 Corinthians. We spent the whole time last week on the 5th chapter, and it was not my intention to do that, but I don't apologize. I think we had a good study on it and a lot of applications, because about all of us have family relations or friends or someone who either has been withdrawn from or should be withdrawn from, and our relations with them are dealt with in that. But the real problem was fornication. And so as we go back, we want to remember, we're studying Acts, obviously, as you know, but we're incorporating the epistles. And so we want to remember as best we can what we've been studying. I made this comment before, but from what I have been told by some of the people who are now dead or in their 90s, Brother Ed Holt used to teach down at Alabama Christian before it became Faulkner. And he would encourage the students in the Bible to study what he called behind. You hear people talk, let's study ahead. He'd say study behind. Go back and just review what you've studied so you just know it like the back of your hand. And that's helpful for us to do that as well as ahead, but to go back and review ourselves. So the first 12 chapters deal with the gospel primarily at Jerusalem. We have the transition chapters where after the death of Stephen, there's a mass persecution, an onslaught, and so they're scattered. Philip goes to Samaria in Acts 8, in conversion of the Ethiopian. 9, who is converted? Saul. 10, Cornelius, the Gentile, which really has everything on the precipice of going over into the Gentile world. Here's Cornelius has been baptized. And so we're leading. So in 11, he has to explain his whereabouts to the Jerusalem elders and the other apostles. And then 12 is really the final blow. James, the brother of John, what happens? He's beheaded. And then Peter is in prison. So you got 2 of the apostles. One is killed, the other is in prison, but miraculously released. And then Herod Agrippa I dies, eaten of worms. And so there's this need to get out of Jerusalem. So 13 through the end primarily deals with Paul's work among the Gentiles. And then in the first journey, primarily in southern Galatia and Cyprus, Isle of Cyprus, and the conference in Jerusalem on circumcision. And then in the second journey, the primary work was over here in Greece, a year and a half at Corinth, chapter 18. I want to remember, though, we have the letter writing beginning from Corinth. Paul comes down, he had left in the second journey, Troas, where he'd picked up Luke. He'd already gotten Timothy over here in Lystra, and they set a straight course through Samothrace. They come to Philippi, conversions there in 16, come to Thessalonica, conversions of people in Thessalonica, as well as the conversions at Berea, and then he goes down to Athens. And under duress, everywhere he leaves. And so he tells Timothy and Silas to come to him with all speed when he leaves Berea. And so when he comes to Athens, we don't find anything in Acts 17 about this, but at some point, Timothy came to him, and he was so concerned about the church that he sent Timothy back. Meantime, he does what? He goes to where? Corinth. That's right. He goes to Corinth, and then he stays with Aquila and Priscilla. And then in time, Silas and Timothy come from Thessalonica with a report about how the brethren are doing, as well as funds to support Paul in his efforts. And so then that becomes the occasion of the writing of 1 Thessalonians with Silas and Timothy. They're both mentioned in the salutation. Well, in time, while he's at Corinth, he leaves, goes to Cenchrea, and then over to Ephesus. And there's the brief beginning of the church. He goes to Caesarea, salutes the church in Jerusalem, then goes back to Antioch and starts on his third journey in Acts 18, verse 23. During the meantime, somebody comes to Ephesus. Starts with an A. Apollos. Good. And he teaches accurately the things of Jesus, except he knows only the baptism of John. And so once Aquila and Priscilla help him, then he wants to go to Corinth. And so they commend him to the work there. During the meantime, Paul comes to Ephesus, and he's there for the better part of how many years? 3 years. Good. And during this time, he writes Galatians as well as the First Corinthian letter. And so that's where we are now. During the meantime, there were some from Chloe's family. He says that in chapter 1. It's been signified unto me by the household of Chloe that there are divisions. So Chloe's family, some of them came, and they had some questions and maybe a written letter. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 7 concerning the things whereof you wrote. So there were things that happened and that were going on at Corinth that needed addressing. And so this is the occasion of the first letter. We've already gone over that. Here's some pictures of Corinth where Paul was. Corinth where Paul is addressing the letter. We're going to come on through here, Brother Charlie, to the outline. And we want to remember, to me, it's so helpful to get an idea, a simple outline, a skeleton outline in your mind. And I think as most of us are teachers, if you can not emphasize a verse necessarily, but the idea, the general idea of a book, whatever it is, Matthew, Zechariah, what is the main message? Boy, I'm glad that's not mine. What's the main message of the book? And